When I look at intuition, there are three components to it. First, it's recognizing that you're receiving a message because universe or source or whatever your belief system is can be throwing all of the messages at you that they want. But if you don't recognize that you're receiving it, you can't do anything with it.
Hey everybody, it's Tanya here. Welcome to Women Working with Light, my podcast and YouTube interview series with people just like you on their awakening journey who are in service to themselves and to others. We are the healers, light workers, way showers, starseeds, artists, channelers, and so much more. My guest today is Erin Lee of Heavenly Messenger. She is a fourth-generation medium, intuitive, Reiki master, and spiritual teacher. Today we talk about finding your life purpose, looking at the different aspects of developing your intuition, and talking a bit about mental health and self-care.
Everybody, it's Tanya here. Welcome to another episode of Women Working with Light. And today I'm really excited to have a guest and a friend and an incredibly gifted reader, Erin Lee of heavenlymessenger.com. Welcome, welcome, Erin.
Tanya, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and a gift to be here with you and to be part of your new series. I'm so excited. So thank you.
Me too, me too. We always have such great energy when we connect with each other. So it's so much fun. I'm just waiting to see what's going to come up because you never know. For those of you who haven't met Erin before, Erin is a fourth generation psychic reader and trained medium with a lifelong interest in metaphysics. She practices a variety of energy healing modalities, is a certified Isui and Karuna Reiki master and teacher, a certified emotion code practitioner, and certified body code practitioner. And you can find her on heavenlymessenger.com. So welcome again. And I am so happy to have you here. And I think we're just going to have a good old flow conversation today. Before we go into that, though, what I'm really curious about, and what I like to ask everybody that comes on to chat, is if you could share a little bit about your experience getting to where you are now from where you were before. So some people call it an awakening. Some people are born with their gifts, which I think you were. And just to share with people, sort of a bit about where you've come from and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's always people ask me this often, and you would think over time I would have come up with like a really succinct answer. But but there isn't anything that's really succinct because it wasn't just one moment. It was a series of things that led to, okay, well, this is what I need to do. This is the path that I need to go on. I mean, for me, I love working with angels. That's who I connect with. That's where my experience has always been, and those connections did start when I was young. But I had a couple of really significant experiences where angels came and interfered. Well, not interfered, but saved. So yeah, I when I was in my mid-20s, I was training. I was going to school because I wanted to become an accountant, and I was doing really well in. Right? Right? No, that's the response everybody gives me, like, "What?" And, like, I was doing really well in my classes. I was the top of my class. I made the dean's honor roll. Like, I really enjoyed it. But it didn't feel right. And, I was having these experiences, and, I went home to my parents and I said, "So, not only am I not going to become an accountant, I'm gonna become a psychic instead." Uh, so like I'm fourth generation on my mom's side of the family, so this wasn't like outside of the realm of like, wow, that's really crazy. I don't think it was what she had planned for me, but for her it wasn't outside of the realm. But with my dad, he is a very logically minded person. and and so this was a pretty big shock. um I really worked on developing what I believe that we all have naturally. And I started doing readings, and I practice Reiki, and I teach, and it's one of the things I'm so incredibly grateful to be able to share with other people and to hopefully like uplift and help them and support them on this journey, whatever that looks like for them.
I love this story. I love that you can know somebody for a while and still not know those little details of their backstory. I did not know explains why your business is so good.
Right. And like I suppose from the perspective of having had family support, that is different for a lot of people, because that's what I see is, as they're stepping into what they're doing, into light, into spirituality, whatever you want to call it, whatever that looks like for you, often there's a lot of resistance from the people around you. And I know that it's a really big challenge. Like there's a lot of people who will fall off to the side because they're not on the same path. Often it means that we're listening to our needs more, and so we're starting to put up boundaries, which has an effect and an impact on relationships and those energy and dynamics as well. So I suppose that there are some ways that it certainly has been, I've had opportunities that perhaps other people haven't had, but I don't think that there is any one experience that's better or worse than the other. And there are always things that offset. So,
It is true. And I noticed that you are actually have a series coming up where you're going to be doing a talk on intuition. But that is what you were just speaking about, is something that comes up often, something that I've been working with people, whether directly or not, by the kind of content I'm doing and what I'm sharing. But there is
mhm,
a thread of a pattern that's happening for a lot of people as they're kind of shifting into this awareness that, there's more going on out there than maybe I ever knew.
yeah.
And I think the one thing that I've really seen a lot, that I've heard a lot from people, some of the social media groups that I'm in, is people get very hung up on a couple of things. First is finding their life path
Hmm.
and being convinced that there's a particular mission, a soul mission, a life path. I have to do things. If I don't find it, I've failed as a human being, as a spirit being. And I think a lot of people really get stuck there.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm really seeing is, especially because I've been doing all this work with galactic groups for the last couple of years, are people that really get stuck on that starseed origin and
Hmm.
believe that they have to be a particular starseed, or who am I, or something I see in groups all the time. And believe me, this is going to get to a question. It will.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this. This is how I work too, so I'm happy to follow along.
I do see people that really get stuck on that starseed origin, but also they'll put their picture in these groups and say, tell me who I am. What do you see in my aura? What star group am I from? And many people who have been through this process, you can remember what it was like. You're just totally lost and floundering. There's all this information, and it gets overwhelming. But what I try to help people with, if they ask for help, because I don't believe in just jumping in and telling people my opinion,
Yep.
um, is really going inside and learning to trust your intuition and to trust that inner knowingness. And then that's going to give you all the answers. Because if you're looking outside of yourself all the time, you're just going to get stuck in rabbit holes, which can be fun, but
Yes.
ultimately are not going to serve what you're searching for. So, hey, guess what? Here comes the question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Is that sort of something that you're doing with the talks and the work that you are doing, centering around teaching people about their intuition?
Usually when people come to see me, they're really focused on wanting to develop intuition more. So whether they've found their place or they're comfortable with where they're looking. But yesterday I was on my Universal Connections chat with my good friend Bobby Roundtree, and one of the questions that came up for us was about finding purpose, which I think is a big part of what you're talking about. And for me, if when people are feeling disconnected from their purpose, it's usually because they're bogged down by everything that's happening outside of them, as you say.
Mm.
And so one of the big things that comes up for me is that this is an opportunity, or like a move towards the need for some self-care, for either taking some downtime or taking that time to explore. And rather than reaching out to connect with lots of people, finding that connection in yourself, which doesn't mean that there might not be an opportunity to connect with like a teacher or something like that, but broadly broadcasting and kind of blindly searching is kind of what that feels like. feels
Mhm.
like really it's inside.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy for the information overload when
Yeah.
you're first starting your journey into the spiritual or your journey into awakening.
Mhm.
It can really bog you down. And especially if you are somebody who, and I think most of the people that are waking up, this is maybe part of the process, but it's like a switch goes off and you get incredibly curious and you cannot get enough information and you just oversaturate yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of outside of yourself. And I think again, it's just part of the process, right? It's like you're outside of yourself and you're trying to find who you are, and then you discover all of these things, and you're
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, maybe conspiracy theories weren't conspiracies. Maybe some of this
Right?
stuff is actually true, and and what is soft disclosure and all of this stuff, and then people can suddenly take a right turn, and all of that old stuff that they've kind of been suppressing can come up and overwhelm. And the term dark night of the soul is really apt, I think, for a lot of people. We've all gone through that. There
Mhm.
is, I just want to say this to those of you who are just starting your journey. You will
Mhm.
get through it and things will change, but it can be challenging. But when you're going through it, ask for help. You're not alone. There are so many people out there now who can help you.
Yep.
So even if, like Erin was saying before, you come out and things start to shift, people fall away, your family and friends, your coworkers might not understand, and you might feel like you have to hide.
Mhm.
Find groups online, find
Mhm.
support, and know that there are people who can really help you. You don't have to feel like you have to go through it all alone. So
Absolutely.
there's my little PSA for the day.
I love that. I love that. And I feel exactly the same way. And then, as things are starting to open up a little bit, certainly on Vancouver Island, where you and I are, there are a lot of opportunities for in-person connections as well. Like there are lots of spirit fairs and other similar things. And so,
Mm.
going to places where people who are likely on a similar path, like nobody's going to be on the same path that you're on because you're you and they're them. Um, but at least there's opportunity to find more support and connection and people who are understanding of what you're going through and what you're experiencing.
When you are teaching or working with people that are going through this process, that are trying to discover their intuition,
Mhm.
um, where is your focus? I'm actually really curious to hear about what you're doing a little bit.
So for me, it's talking initially about the ways that people are already receiving intuitive messages, but they're not aware of,
Mm.
because it's. I'm gonna go into a story. So I was.
Stories.
I love stories. So um, so I was this was years ago. I think this was back in 2009 or 2010. I was at a large spirit expo. It was in this great big huge convention center, and it wasn't only like a spirit fair, it was also health and wellness. So you get people like me who are doing readings, who are selling metaphysical products. Like the booth that was right next to me had crystals, and on the other side there were Sufis, and they were dancing the whirling dancing. It was
Amazing.
oh, it was so cool. I learned so much with being next to them. It was an incredible experience. Um, but there were also people there who were selling like supplements and healthcare products, and it wasn't a spiritually minded group, everybody, just some of us. And I was recently single at the time. So part of the reason that this sticks out so much is because it did involve this really beautiful man who I watched walk across the convention center right to my booth. It was it was very fun.
I'm
But that's only part of the story,
having a Hallmark moment.
right? And then he told me about his fiance, so that's okay. But
Oh.
um but he came up and he was there. He was helping his fiance and future father-in-law with the product that they were selling, which was some sort of health product. But he said, I've always been really interested in people who do the work that you do. And he said, I'm not in the least bit psychic or intuitive at all. And I started talking about the different ways that people can be intuitive. I started talking about like clairsentience and clairvoyance and claircognizance and clairaudience, which are the four primary ways that we receive intuitive messages and information. And I was describing how these things can come out. And he said, well, I work selling some sort of financial product. And in my industry, the closing rate was between 40 and 50%. So the closing rate in this means the person walks through the door and you're able to sell them a financial product. That's the industry standard. He said, my closing rate is 98%. And, and he said, I just know when people walk in, I know exactly what it is that they need. And the thing is, I really care about what I'm selling to them. And I want to make sure that they're okay. And I'm like, wow, that is a way to quantify your intuition.
It's
I think there's a lot of belief that intuition, if you're going to be intuitive, you have to use it to do like psychic readings, or you have to know what's going to happen in the future. But for me, intuition is that inner knowing that helps to guide you, to let you know like when you're going off track, or to really give you that confirmation that you're on the right track. But typically we're highly intuitive in the things that we really enjoy doing. So for him, he was really passionate about helping people find the right financial product for them. And for me, I'm really passionate about people doing well in their relationships, in their work, in their career. And that's what I get my messages around. So when I work with people, I really want to help them to see how they're already receiving intuitive messages, because once we recognize that we're receiving them, then we can start like honoring, hey, like I'm receiving this message that doesn't feel good, so I want to pay attention to it and I want to find out more.
Mhm.
So when I look at intuition, there are three components to it. First, it's recognizing that you're receiving a message, because universe or source or whatever your belief system is can be throwing all of the messages at you that they want. But if you don't recognize that you're receiving it, you can't do anything with it. So, like, let's recognize how you might receive an intuitive message, and then understand what that message is, and then take action on it. And what I found is people get really caught up in like recognizing that they're receiving messages, and then they're really excited to understand what the message is. And they don't always follow through with the taking action. So, and I mean, like, I'm not here to call anybody out or beat anybody up, because goodness knows I have certainly done the same too. I think that's all part of being human and being in this human experience, right? It's like your parents saying, well, no, no, you shouldn't touch that hot thing. You're like, well, I just want to see what it's like. Oh yeah, that hurt.
Gotta go touch it.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a funny story. I think it's funny. It might not be funny. Because this is something I've been aware of. Like you, I've sort of been born with the abilities that I have, and then it took a very long time to actually just a little sideways thing. I think all of us are born with intuition and natural abilities, and then something happens when we're young, whether that's nature or nurture, and things just kind of get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we all know and trust. And that's why when you see the little kids that are, bobbling around and they're talking to things, because they're talking to their angels or the spirits that are around. And that's what they're doing. And it's nice to see that opening up now.
Mm-hmm.
But I had that ability and then shut it down because it kind of scared me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I learned it again when I was older, and I was teaching it and aware of it, and it's part of my life. And yet, take a trip. I used to live in Vancouver for a very long time. A couple of years ago, I went back to just have a weekend and enjoy. And I was, because as you know, I'm a foodie. I reincarnated here for the food, friends. That's why I'm
Right.
here.
You need to have the human body to have the food experience.
That's right. So I was basically doing my old food tour of Vancouver, the places that I used to go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, there's some places that I never go. I'm just going to go on, take a little jaunt up to this particular beach out by the university. And so I was driving along, and then, oh, they've changed the road. Okay, I'll have to go the other way. And I was like, oh, I know there's another road here. I'll go that way. Oh, it's now a bike path. Okay, I'll turn around and come back. Oh, now it's a one-way street going the wrong direction. This happened about 12 times. And the whole time in the back of my mind, it's like, just take the high road. Just go on the other road.
Yeah.
No, I know I can get there this way. Like I literally am saying it out loud to my intuition or my guides or whomever is like, just take the other road. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Nope.
Nope. I'm going this way. And then it got to the point, like literally 11 times, where I was like, okay, I know it's this road. And then I get on the road, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this beep, 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 stops right in front of me. And this tractor is something I've never seen. I actually have a video of it because it was so bizarre.
Yep.
I don't even know what this piece of machinery was, but it covered the entire road. And it was like, but the beach is right there. But no, I had to turn around and go all the way up on the original road. And in doing that, I
Yep.
ended up at this place that I had forgotten that I loved. And it was 2 minutes before close. Ends up Jamaica Patty place in Vancouver. You guys are awesome. And I got the last Jamaica Patty of the day. Like,
That is so perfect.
meanwhile, my guides are like,
For crying out
the
loud,
memes where
Tanya.
they're just like, why am I here?
Oh my gosh. But you know what? I love how insistent they were. Like it's
Oh yeah, well, because then I'm like literally fighting them like a bulldog that's like, no, it's mine. I got it. I'm gonna get it. I'm doing it this way. But the point of the whole story was the way that intuition can come to people is quite different.
Mhm.
And for me, it's a very subtle shift in awareness. Sometimes it can feel like a whisper, but without words, or
Mhm.
sometimes it is literally words. Sometimes it's like your guide's going, no, take the other road. But I'm like, what do you say to people when they're saying, how do I find my intuition? How do I trust it? How do I know it's not just me talking to myself?
Mhm. So, I mean, for me, usually I talk about the four different types of ways that we receive intuitive messages. So, claircognizance is clear knowing, so thoughts and ideas popping into your head. Clairvoyance is clear sight, so seeing either images in your mind's eye or flashes of images outside of yourself. Clairaudience, which is clear hearing, so like auditory messages, and this can be something that you're hearing inside your head, or it can be something that you're hearing externally from yourself. And then clairsentience, which is clear feeling, which is picking up on emotion or physical sensation in the body. So, sometimes people will get goosebumps when something really resonates for them. That's a form of clairsentience. And that's also, empath is under the realm of clairsentience as well. So, there are lots of, yeah, there are those four primary ways that we receive messages. We also receive messages through taste and through smell. So I start with that because sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I get messages like that. But when it comes to trusting, for me, intuition always comes through with a feeling of support, a feeling of love, and never a feeling of I want to hurt myself or somebody else. And it doesn't come through with a feeling of like being dragged down.
I like that. It makes it very clear
Mhm.
and yet accessible to, I think, a lot of people that are going through it.
Yeah.
Especially many people who are coming into this awareness who are older or
Mhm.
who have been raised with a very particular set of values and core ideals. And now that is starting to shift for them. And it can be a very scary place because those things that were their support are now sort of shifting and they're like, oh my God, now what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right. So it's really, I'm just thinking of some people that I've known that have sort of gone through this and are afraid of it and
Mhm.
feeling like it can create something that's a doorway that they don't want to go into. And
Mhm.
yet, when they trust it, wonderful things happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for me, when it comes to learning to trust your intuition, start with small things. So, things that don't have an impact on your overall trajectory. Like, for example, maybe what you're going to eat or what would feel good to wear today. You can use your intuition to start making those choices and decisions rather than, should I move across the country? That's maybe not a great place to start. I think when it comes to intuition, people believe that they're passive, that they get whatever they get and that's it. And one of the things that I really want to encourage people to understand and to empower is that you can ask. You can ask for more information. You can ask for clarification. You can ask questions. And if you're sitting there and you're asking questions and nothing is coming back, then that's a really great way to say, hey, like, where is this coming from? Well, obviously it's not coming from a source that has any additional information. If you can learn to trust your intuition around the small things, so work towards developing on the small things that aren't going to have a significant impact on your overall health and well-being, but it opens up the door to learning. Then you start to learn what it feels like to get genuine intuitive messages, and you can start applying that to those other things that are coming through.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think another thing that's really powerful is just the terminology, because sometimes people really get hung up on the words.
Yeah.
The situation can be the same and has a different wrapper on it with the language, and there's no problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes people had a bad experience when they were younger, or they heard or read something, or they were taught something that had that particular word or title associated with it, and that can be a little jarring. And things have really opened up now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, everyone talks about the shift and how it's going to be the best time in all these good times and maybe not so good times, but it really is. There's so much accessible to us now.
Yeah.
And I see this across the board, in cultural things, in politics, in male versus female interactions, and women coming into power. And it's just, seeing what's available now, for us. Like, one of the things that I know you're passionate about, and so am I, is self-care and body image.
Yeah.
And seeing what the young women have now, how they're supporting each other, and the ability for different body types to just be out there. And it's not even a thing. It's not about the way that you look or your color or your culture or your geography. You're just doing you. And I love that. I love that we finally got around to this place, because it's been a long road.
I tend not to like to go too much into pandemic, but what I do want to say was right at the very beginning, in March, April, May of 2020, one of the things that I noticed was that people had to slow down. They were forced to slow down. They had to take time. They couldn't go out. They couldn't do the things that they would usually do. And so a lot of people started to turn to things like meditation, things like self-care, because you couldn't do anything else. And that had a really profound effect on people, on what people were receiving, like from a psychic point of view, from an intuitive point of view, and recognizing that we have to take care of ourselves first. But one thing that was really beautiful that came out of it was, I think, this opportunity and this experience. And I think that that's part of what we're starting to see. Like, that was part of what contributed to people starting to explore more, because they had these experiences, but also people actively working to shut it down as well, because it was scary, as you said. So.
And that's, I feel like, one of the major pivot points into this shift that's happening with so many people. More to come, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And the beautiful things that are coming out of it are the way that people are remembering who they are, and the support and the love that's happening. Because you take people out of their busy life, it's like this, right? You can be in that tunnel of focus. And when that is gone, it can be quite scary, because that's, people are using that to support themselves. But then it took a lot of people inside, and they started to remember who they were, and reconnecting with their family and their friends, and reconnecting with themselves physically. That's something that I really found. One of the ways that I got through it. For me, I'm let's face it, kiddos, it wasn't a big change in my life, I'm already a hermit. So it was, I was quite happy with it. But the one thing that I really found was, when we did have the lockdown part, I missed my exercise. And I'm not a huge exercise fan, but I love to walk in nature, and I was really that. So for me, I was connecting with this wonderful guy called Ryan Heffington, who created this, it just became a phenomenon. He's a dance instructor. But that sort of thing was so fun, because not only were you connecting with that energy, it was the energy of the entire group. And comments and everybody supporting each other going through it, and people having a hard time, and they would just be focused and be like, okay, this guy's having a hard time, let's all connect in. And it was just like, wow, amazing.
Absolutely. And I think, the word that really comes up for me in that is community,
Yes.
right? Is
Yeah.
that we were able to create community in a different way because we were able to bond over similar experiences. Like, I know certainly not in my lifetime, and I'm guessing not in your lifetime. Has there ever been a time when the entire world was going through exactly the same
There
experience?
was a
Or
thread that was identical for everybody. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. We were all in a place where we weren't supposed to go out and where we weren't connecting with people, and it brought a whole pile of things up, and it gave opportunity to connect with people in a way that we hadn't connected before.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though all of us who are introverts were quite happy,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
still, it kind of took it next level. I think the introvert challenge came when the pandemic ended.
Yes.
And we had to go back out, and then you're in the lineup and suddenly there's the guy and you're like, personal space, personal space.
Yeah. One of the things that I appreciate about the connection that I have with you and with other people who are significant in my life is the ability to laugh with you. You know,
Oh, yeah,
it
me too.
it just it raises the energy, the vibration. It brings healing to the soul. It's such a gift. So thank you.
I totally agree. It's such a wonderful thing, and it's such an accessible thing. And it's really interesting because like many people, I have had bouts with mental health issues. And for me, it took years to find out that the majority of what I was dealing with was actually food sensitivities that were triggering depression.
Yeah.
Who knew? Um, but when it comes on, it really just for me, it felt like a lead blanket was around. And even if it was a sunny day, I couldn't see anything. I was just feeling so horrible. And
Yeah.
I discovered these incredible videos through YouTube and other sources where it's people laughing, and some other sorted ones. There's one I'm gonna make sure. I always get my finger backwards on YouTube. Anyway, check up here, folks, and check out this video. And it's apparently he's quite famous. It's a spiritual teacher called Muji, and this was a excerpt from a conference that he was doing. And this young man came up, and I swear to God, if you have never seen a star seed incarnate on the earth who doesn't really understand how earth works and is trying to navigate their way, this is what this experience was like. And
Yeah.
this guy, and he was trying to communicate but he couldn't, and everybody just started laughing, and the laughter goes on for 10 minutes. And I started using that video when I was feeling down or if I was trying to shift things around. And it's like,
Good.
you can't watch something that is making you laugh that hard.
Hmm.
Can't laugh and be depressed. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it might come back, it might shift, but I like to share this just because it's something that has worked for me and it's worked for a lot of other people.
Absolutely.
And yeah, anyway, I'm going to use that as a segue.
I think so. I was just going to throw out there that depression is something that I've dealt with since I was a very young child, and it has increased as I've gotten older. But I also see it as being one of those things that has really promoted the development of my intuition. And I see it as being my superpower. Um, because it's if that wasn't present in my life, I don't know that the impetus would have been there to explore and to learn and to understand what is mine and what is stuff that I'm picking up from other people.
Mhm.
And it's really caused me to look for more answers and for more understandings. And so, I kind of alluded to it earlier with, that everybody has different challenges. This has definitely been one of mine, is like the challenge to continue to stay in a physical body that is rebelling against you.
Mhm. Yeah,
knowing the peace and the beauty that is on the other side. So,
yeah.
I hear where you are and what you're saying. And as I said, taking that as being something that can actually fuel your understanding of why you're here and of developing more.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to help a lot of people. And it's something that I haven't talked about a lot, but I have been in the last few years because I feel like so many of us are going through it on our own,
Yeah.
especially in the Western world. There is something that's really shifted in our culture, and a lot of women, as they are becoming empowered and aware, are choosing to remain single,
Hmm.
are choosing to not have children or to have fur babies instead.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And now that said, a lot of us are also dealing with um, some of the challenges of doing everything on our own. I mean, it's not that we can't do it, but it's hard sometimes to, especially if you're independent, to remember it's okay to ask for help and it's okay
Hmm.
to ask for support. That was something I've been really challenged by.
Yeah.
And so, and then, as of course, being women, we go through different cycles in our lives,
Yeah.
and we're dealing with the hormones and we're dealing with different things. And, like, it's not just being on your own and looking for support. Then you have to deal with going through shifts in your life and your life
Mhm.
energy and then your spiritual life. So it's a
Two
lot.
things that popped
Yeah.
up for me. One, where community comes in and is helpful, like being able to reach out to community and saying, hey, I'm having a hard time, which can be a really difficult thing to do in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah, that's challenging.
But like not only being okay with reaching out for help, but the biggest thing I've found is actually accepting help when it is offered.
Mm.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's almost like a stoicism, and I
Mhm.
mean, the way that I was raised, there was a sense of pride in being able to do it yourself.
Mhm.
And if not pride, a requirement. You
Yep.
never asked for help and you did it on your own, and that was what got you the kudos from, the community and the parents and everything else.
Yeah.
But things have changed.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see, and that's part of why I'm sort of enjoying talking about this and bringing it forward, because um, there's a saying which is really popular on social media, and I love it, and it's okay to not be okay.
Mhm.
And I think that's so powerful. There's always such power in simplicity, but
Yeah.
it just kind of like goes right to the heart of it. Because
Yep.
there's a lot of us that have been like, I'm not okay. I can't tell anyone. I have to hide it. And that just fuels the fire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just going back into the old adage, laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone. Like how isolating is that and perpetuates that downward spiral. So the idea of it's okay to not be okay and you're not
Mhm.
alone,
Yeah.
I I think is
And it's okay to talk about it.
yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to go into counseling if that's uncomfortable, but even finding friends or a coworker that's in a similar, wavelength, or
Yeah.
community groups or whatever it is, but being
Mhm.
able to connect with people and let them know, when people say, how you doing? You don't have to be like, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
right.
it's starting to shift a bit, and I think that's good. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's just, oh, it's just so much happening. It just makes me really happy sometimes, when I think about where we have all this accessibility now.
Mhm.
And
One of the things that's popping up for me is compassion. Um, Compassion for ourselves, but also compassion for other people. Because one of the things that we've been talking about is we've been talking about all of the shifts and the changes and the new opportunities that are coming up. And yet I'm also incredibly aware that there are a lot of people who are really holding strongly to what has been, the idea of going back to what was normal before because all of this is uncomfortable. And
yeah,
taking a moment to recognize and coming from a place of compassion that part of the reason that they're holding so strongly could be a fear of the unknown and what's happening.
I think it's a meme or something like that, or it's just a saying, but it's very true. Is you never really know what's going on with somebody.
Hmm.
That woman that's in front of you in the checkout who's making a fuss over something ridiculous. Well, she might be dealing with some really heavy things going on at home, or, some internal stuff. And it's easy to get kind of stuck on that level, when that anger comes at you.
Hmm.
A lot of us, it's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? There's not a stop and think. And a lot of us are learning that with this whole shift in consciousness and the accessibility to our emotions and understanding that we have the ability to stop and choose and actually think. But sometimes in the moment, that energy comes at you, especially if you're sensitive, and
Yeah.
it can just flood you, and you're just like, get off. And
Yeah.
then you come back out verbally, right? Like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Or in thought, which is the same. And it just gives you a bit of pause to stop and say, okay, well, maybe they're having as rough a day as I've been having, and allows you to just sit in that moment for a second and say, okay, it's not really about me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I think there are a lot of ways that we've become a really me-focused society, which in ways is really good because it's meant things like self-care have become important and not completely depleting yourself to make sure that others are okay. I think that those are really great awarenesses. But because of that, everything has become about us as well. And so I think that part of what we do is we explore the balances, or pardon me, we explore the extremes in order to find that balance. I think the importance of being aware of ourselves and yet not making everything about us.
Oh, well said.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really true.
And
Thank you so much for being here, Erin. And I just wanted to let people know that they can find you on Facebook and on your website, which is heavenlymessenger.com. And that's Heaven, Lee, like her last name, and the same on Facebook. And you can also book an appointment with her at bookingwitherin.com. And do check that show notes below and the more and descriptive area, and there are direct links for you right there. So thank you again, Erin. I look forward to seeing you in person really soon. And I just had so much fun chatting with you today. So big hugs, Zoom hugs. Zoom
hugs.
Zoom hugs. And we'll talk to you soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Tanya.
Bye. I'll do it
Sorry,
again.
I interrupted you there. Okay, again.
Disappear. Boop, 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 boop. Magic.
Oh, I love it. I knew there was going to be some magic today. I just didn't realize it was this. Like, what is it that I want? And what is it that I want?
Gotta be Salish.
That was so perfect.
Salish, you little monkey. Sorry about that.
We're all good. Is this the
I hope you enjoyed that. Well, hey, thank you for watching Women Working with Light. You can find out more over at podcast.tanyakucey.com. Thank you so much for being here, and please remember that if you take a moment to comment, like, share, and hey, even subscribe, you never know who you might be helping out just by sharing a bit of your opinion, your light, and your energy. Thank you so much. I will catch you guys on the flip side. And oh, I always forget to ask, if you're still here and you feel like supporting the channel, feel free to click that donate button. It's in my banner masthead, and you can also find it in the description. Every little bit helps because I do not monetize my channel. I'm doing this for the love for you guys. So thank you so much. We will catch you guys next time, and don't forget to look out for part 2 with Erin Lee. Bye-bye.